And in 10 days, with your help, we're going to send Ron Johnson packing.
Mandela Barnes, Wisconsin's Democratic lieutenant governor, making his first bid for federal office.
12 News anchor Jaron Jordan is busy on the campaign trail.
Joyce and Matt, his campaign allowed us only a few minutes with Mandela Barnes. We talked about the big issues before voters right now.
All right. How we feeling today?
Mandela Barnes on the trail these last few days of the campaign, encouraging voters to get to the polls. I want to jump right in with the number one issue that the latest polling shows that voters are taking to the polls, and that's inflation and the economy. Barnes talking exclusively with 12 News about his plan to make cost more affordable for Wisconsin families as prices for just about everything soars to never-before-seen highs.
We need a real plan, and that's bringing jobs back here. In the short term, we need to make sure we offer working-class families some relief. That means a middle-class tax cut, expanding the earned income tax credit, making the child tax credit permanent so people can keep more of what they earn.
Republicans say that we are in this situation because of out-of-control Democrat spending. How much blame does your party have for where we are today?
Well, I'll tell you, people like Ron Johnson had no problem blowing a $2 trillion hole into the deficit to deliver tax breaks for the wealthy. The 2017 tax bill gave $215 million in tax deductions to two of his biggest donors in a single year. Senator Johnson benefited personally, his own business benefited personally, and that's how they continue to stack the deck against working people. It helps wealthy people get even wealthier while working class people continue to struggle and have to deal with the challenges of rising costs. So I can tell you that Republicans, again, have not done a single thing. The only thing they can try to do is ban abortion. That's the tack they've taken. They haven't really addressed the concerns that people have had.
On the issue of abortion, Barnes, in an exclusive interview, saying this to our Matt Smith.
So you've been asked this several different ways in the last couple of days. Do you support a woman being allowed to have an abortion up until birth?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a decision that should be made between a woman and her doctor. I don't have the medical credentials to make that decision.
I mean, is that a yes or no, though?
But I think most members of Congress don't have the medical credentials to make that decision.
A lot of people are going to say you, by not saying yes or no, means that you are open to abortion up
Well,
until birth.
my answer to that is I'm not a medical professional, and neither are most people who make this decision.
I pressed for answers again. On the issue of abortion, is this an issue that you think should go before voters?
Well, I can tell you that 70% of people in the state of Wisconsin think Roe versus Wade should be the law of the land. And the Supreme Court made a very out-of-touch decision, almost as out-of-touch as Senator Ron Johnson has been for the last 12 years.
And so should it go before abortion? I know that there are calls to make this a referendum issue. Should voters be the one to decide, or is this a federal government issue?
I think the people of Wisconsin are already pretty clear on where they are. 70% of the people of the state agree. And I support making Roe versus Wade the law of the land, as a majority of people in the state do.
Crime and keeping communities safe, another key issue for voters. His opponent, Senator Ron Johnson, accuses Barnes of being soft on crime, wanting to defund the police. Johnson doubling down after this picture circulated on social media showing Barnes holding an Abolish ICE t-shirt several years ago.
What was that all about? Do you support abolishing ICE?
I'll tell you that no T-shirt is going to be able to, no T-shirt or T-shirt slogan is going to be able to capture the nuance of comprehensive immigration reform that's needed in this country. I don't support abolishing ICE. I do support comprehensive immigration reform.
What was the story behind the T-shirt? What was the story behind the T-shirt?
That story has already been reported on.
So tell me about it.
It's just a shirt, and somebody had it. And like I said, it's not a shirt that can. There's no slogan that can capture the entire nuance of that issue.
While not saying if he wants to end cash bail, as his opponent says, Barnes did tell me people shouldn't be able to buy their way out of jail. So is there anything that you want to do at the federal level to make sure that this is not an issue?
Well, again, there is no bail reform system, bail to be reformed at the federal level. And the legislation I supported as member of the Assembly would have strengthened our system here in the state, would have made our communities safer. And that's what it comes down to. And it's a shame that Ron Johnson is using tragedies to try to instill fear in people. It is upsetting, it is appalling that they continue to lie about this issue.
12 News asked both candidates to participate in a debate ahead of Election Day. Senator Johnson agreed, Barnes did not. Senator Johnson says that you've been hiding, that you haven't agreed to debates, that you are trying to stay out of the public eye. Just your response to that.
Well, that's pretty ludicrous. People saw 2 debates on live on television where Ron Johnson tried to run away from his record. He was so absurd as to say the FBI tried to set him up. He tried to play victim.
But just why should people be voting for you at the poll?
Yeah, happy to tell you why. And it's because I believe better is possible. I believe we can truly give everybody a fair shot at the American dream. We can level the playing field for working working families. We can make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share so our schools can be fully funded, so that we can have safe communities, so that we can do the right thing to make sure that we have good paying jobs in abundance.
Still to come, hotly contested and closely watched. The battle for Wisconsin governor.
They don't think sometimes you fight hard enough, but you wouldn't support exceptions for rape or incest.
It's still ahead in this WISN 12 Commitment 2022 election special.